Somebody asked me about miniatures the other day. They actually ask a lot, and I tried to avoid the conversation because it's so controversial among Highland breeders. Yeah, believe it or not, there's a huge controversy about miniature Highlands. Some breeders say that, you know, they're kind of like the Loch Ness monster, and they don't really exist, you know. Then again, you got other people say, yeah, I breed them all the time, you know. So, what's the truth? Well, it depends on who you ask. Since I've got no dog in the fight, this is my take on it. Miniature Highlands do exist. Miniature being strictly a size designation. You know, it's like big in here being, I don't know, extra hefty. You know, you don't go around saying that, you know, extra hefty Highlands are a separate breed. Just like you don't say miniature Highlands are a separate breed. It's either a Highland cow or it's not. And traditionally, Highland cattle were smaller, much smaller than Hamish anyway. But the average was about 1,100 pounds, about the size of Kylo. So they're not, you know, generally speaking, they're not large cows to begin with. And there are miniatures. Now there's a few different ways you can get a miniature. You know, you got some people that are taking the smallest Highlands that they can find, and they're breeding down for it. You know, they take the smaller animals and you breed for the size. You know, people have been breeding up for beef for years. You know, these guys are just doing it in reverse. You know, they're breeding down. That's one way to get a Highland, a small Highland. The next way is you can breed it with a smaller breed of cow. Normally when that happens, people will breed them with Dexters. Dexters are also a small breed of cow. But a lot of times they will carry what's called the bulldog gene. And what that gene does, it's a genetic mutation that causes dwarfism. You know, it's just like, you know, if it's a person, we call them midgets, you know, or little people or whatever. In the cattle world, am I boring you? You know, in the cattle world, they'd be miniatures. So a lot of people will take the small Highlands and breed them with a chondropositive Dexter or chondropositive Highland. And when I say chondro, that's the actual name of the genetic mutation. Chondroplas something or other. But you can take a chondropositive, you know, cow and breed it with a small Highland. Chances are you're going to wind up with a small Highland. You know, my contention with that is the calf that's born is not really a Highland. You know, it's a mixed breed. You know, like a Labradoodle or a Pomsky or, you know, something like that. You know, it's not quite a Highland, it's not quite a whatever. So, you can call it a Highland. You know, it may look like a Highland, but it's not really a Highland. It's more of a mutt with long hair. The third way you can get a miniature Highland is by being scammed. You know, a lot of times, well, I won't say a lot of times, but, you know, sometimes Highlands are born that are runts, you know, like Kylo. You know, they're born small, sickly, you know, for whatever reason. Well, Highland cattle have a really slow growth rate. In the beef industry, you can get an Angus cow ready to market in about 6 months. With a Highland, it's going to take about 18 months. So, when a Highland breeder gets a small cow, a runt, he doesn't really have the time or resources to wait and see if that small cow is going to grow up to be profitable. So he'll wind up culling the herd, you know, because he doesn't want that small runt gene coming back into his fold later on. But a lot less scrupulous cattlemen will take that stunted runt calf and try and sell it as a miniature. And, you know, as long as it's in the environment that it's in, chances are it's not going to get any bigger. You know, whatever the reason is that it was born that way, you know, it doesn't change just because he was born. You know, in Kylo's case, he was born small, but then the rest of the herd, you know, they were always picking on him and pushing him off the hay and pushing him off the feed, and, you know, he wasn't getting the resources and the nutrition that all the other cattle were getting. So he was going to stay that size. But once you get them out of the environment, you know, and you know, get them in a situation where they've got good grass and they got good hay and they don't have to fight so hard, you know, to get it. You know, they start growing like they should. You know, and that's part of the problem is little Susie will be flipping through Facebook and she'll see this little teeny cow. She'll run into the living room and say, "Daddy, Daddy, buy me this small cow." And he'll look at her and say, "Oh, okay, honey." So they'll load up in the SUV and go on out to this guy's farm, and, you know, sure enough, he's got a small miniature Highland out there. You know, so they'll make a deal with the farmer and they'll load that calf up in the back of their SUV and take it on back home. Stick it in the backyard surrounded by a little white picket fence, and, you know, all the neighborhood kids will come over. For the next 8 months, they'll feed it popcorn and candy bars. You know, hopefully somewhere along the line, that cow is going to start getting some real nutrition. You know, maybe they bring it hay, maybe it eats the backyard. You know, who knows? But it doesn't have to fight so hard to eat now. You know, it doesn't have to fight so hard to get the nutrition that it does need. You know, and once that happens, his big cow genes are going to kick in. You know, so little Susie's going to come home from school one day, and instead of her cute little Highland cow standing out there, she now got a 700-pound Highland. You know, what's she going to do with it then?